welcome to featured video. We'll be looking at Ospf, how to configure it. We'll be using TIA router, and we'll be looking at what are the basic things you need to know setting up Ospf routing on your network. Now I'll be showing you what address I'm having on those router. These are from the configuration we had for the basic microtech setup. You can see I'm having just the basic, the gateway and the local. I'm showing you another thing I did is, instead of using bridge, I'm using a master port using local to actually turn those Ether ports into slave. So I did for Ether 8. Now we'll be looking at the address is here, and let's try to look at the default route. You can see the default route there. Now we look at terminal and see what IP can we see. IP route print. You can see that I can only see 2 networks here, and this is the gateway. Now let's go to the router 2 and see what we have there. The router 2 is 172.168.0.2, and the name is router OS radius. From the terminal, let's see what we can see there. IP route print. We can only see 1 network, so they can't see each other. Now the router 3 will not be accessible now. Let's try to see their routing table. RIP is not on, so they cannot see each other. Now we'll be using Ospf to make the network to be able to see each other. Now to start with, let me start from this one. How do you create? The first thing you do is try to create, that is, let me go to route Ospf. You can maximize this so that you can see all the interface you need. We need area, network, instance, and we need the interfaces. Now one other thing you need is a loopback. Now if you don't want to use loopback, the alternative is to use the addresses as the router ID. But instead of that, we'll be creating a loopback. How do you create a loopback? Go to bridge, add bridge, put the name loopback. Okay, let's go to addresses, then add address to the loopback. Now the interface will be loopback. The address I'll be giving here, which will be the router ID, will be .1.1/32. Apply and OK. So you can see from the addressing that it has been applied. Now let's go back to our Ospf area. The area, I'll be using the defaults. I'll not be creating another one. You can change the name to area or something else if you need be, but let's try to work with the default. Network, go to add. Now in adding the network, let's go back to addressing. I will minimize this, close the interface. Address is for you. There are 2 ways to do that. You can just copy the network or the first address and paste /24, apply. The second network also, copy it, paste /24, apply. But instead of these 2, we'll be using a faster way of doing that. We'll be using the default Now the advantage of using defaults, in case you change any of this address, you don't need to come back to the Ospf and change the address. So we'll be going with the default from the router. Now remember, we create a loopback. This is where it's useful. Router ID. From the router ID, the next is retrieve route. We'll be using type 1 and type 1 to retrieve connected. Now what does this one do? The router connected to this router, the routing table will be routed on the network based on this information. We'll be saying no to static route, RAID, BGP, retrieve other USA routes from other area. So we'll be using OK. Ospf is running. Let's now look at the interfaces. This instance, let's look at interfaces. Now if the only thing we can set here is if you have a point-to-point network that is /30, you can come here and turn it to point-to-point. Then select the interface that is point-to-point. Let's assume is the gateway. Then you click on apply. Okay, you can see, but this is a broadcast point, so I will leave it at broadcast and click OK. So you can see that the network type is broadcast. Now our routes still remain the same because other routers are yet to be configured. Now what do you do next? Let's go back to the second router. The second router actually is our radius router from people's tutorial. You can see the addressing and the default route. It actually has no configuration except Ospf. You can see that from the package or packages rather, userman, and that's all it does. So now we go back, we do the same thing. First of all, start with the bridge. Create the bridge, call it loopback. Okay, close this, go back to addresses, IP. We had an IP, this time around 10.0.0.0.2, and the interface will be loopback. That will be the router ID. So we are free to go to the routing menu. Ospf, we'll be using the defaults. Like I said, you can maximize this so that you can see all the links. We just need 3 major tabs to be configured: area, network, instances, and interfaces. So I go to network. Like I said, in case the IP change, I can use the default all IP. Go to instances, then the router ID come in. We're using 1 and 2 here from the loopback. Now if a router is slave to the main router, this happen to be type 2 and connected route will be type 2 here. Now this is the trick. If both of them are type 1 and I have type 1 here and I have type 1 here, and the first router you can see from the type 2 and the instance is type 1, you're going to have a problem. It's like saying male and male doesn't work together unless male and female schools or connection. So for you to have a perfect connection, this one will be type 2 and this one will be type 2. Now if you don't want the forward to be routed, you can just say never, which is okay, but let's make use of type 2 and we click on apply. Now remember, we create a route before. You can see that my network, I'm having a larger route table. Now the third router I'll be connecting, I have to disconnect this cable and move to the router in which we configure our failover and load balancing router. That will be the third router. We have the Ospf router, the userman router, and we'll be having the gateway router, which acts like a failover. So you can see disconnected, disconnected. So from the addresses you can see 172.16.10.0.1 connecting, and let's see the route this time around. IP route print. These are all the routes you can see for now. So what do we do first? Go to bridge, create a loopback. Go to addresses. The interface will be loopback, and the addresses will be 0. 10.3 this time around, and it will be /32. Apply. So what next do you do? Now this router is not connected to any of the previous two. It's a separate router on its own. So how do I undo the Ospf? Go to routing, Ospf, starts from area, we make use of the default. Now we go to network, we take the default also. We go to instances, we put the router ID 10, and here we put 3. Now reachable default route, I can put never, and here I'll be using type 1. Now why type 1? The reason being that this is not connected to any of the previous two. So type 1, and this is the main router. Any other router can connect to this, whereas the other one I have to connect to, one has to connect to the other, and the routing table has to be re-propagated. So I will apply, go to terminal, let's see again. Now before that, there is something we need to work on. So as you can see, this router is a standalone, and from the other router, let me go back to the previous router and see what we have there. The routing table will have expanded by now. And make sure you have access to internet. Now let me connect again. That's the previous router, that's the third router. So okay, connecting using IP this time around. From neighbor, these are more router coming up from neighbor. So you can see more router IP is being detected. Then RIP is not on, BGP is not on, all other routings are turned off except RIP. You can see. So go back to routing Ospf, that's the only one turned on. So instances. Now what if I'm having 3 routers directly connected one to the other one? Like you have, let me show you from MikroTik, you have R1, you have R2 to this and back to this. So what you do in that scenario is this, you make this the first router will be type, let me change the color, this is type 1, then this will be type 2, and this again will be type 1. We have another router, let's say we have the fourth router and we have another connection to this. So what do we do? So this will be type 2. So as you can see, this move to this move to this, and to this, and to this. So type 1, type 2, type 1, type 2, male, female, male, female. So let's see. Let's see what we have from the routing table. Like I said, type 1 distribute connected route, distribute. So we go to terminal. Let's clear the screen. Terminal, print. You can see more routing table are coming up from the connection. So that will be the end of Ospf. Join me again as we look at BGP in the next tutorial.